God's representation, which means speaking and acting on his behalf in this day of the Lord, is his righteous servant of Isaiah 53. God's visible representation in the day of the Lord of Malachi 3 is God's righteous servant, who is the prophet like Moses, to deliver the new covenant of Jeremiah 31, which is basically how we know that the time to come with Jeremiah 31 is the day of the Lord, because the only other place you see a mention of the arrival of the new covenant is with the angel of the covenant that you desire. The only other covenant is that of friendship. When Moshiach comes, God grants the covenant of friendship. The prophet like Moses to deliver the new covenant to the Jewish people as Moses delivered the first. It's important to point out that it's not new. God says, not like the covenant I made with your fathers out of Egypt. That's true. It's an amendment. It's there's an addition to it and a confirmation of the first covenant. Nothing ever happened to the first covenant. It's not terminated by the new covenant by any stretch, but there's an amendment, and you find it in Malachi. Chapter 3, verse 22, be mindful of the laws I gave Moses at Oreb, of my rules, commandments, and it's being mindful, because it was strict compliance at Oreb, Sinai, and it had to be 100% of the people. Well, God makes it clear. He realizes that's no longer the case. He understands that. That's why there's a scroll of remembrance for those who revere and esteem his name and those who do not. He's recognizing that fact. Even though when he speaks of the new covenant in Jeremiah 31, he says, and all will heed me. And Torah will be written on your heart. How's he going to do this? He tells you. Because I'm going to forgive your sins and remember your iniquities no more. Okay, he's making a new covenant. He's delivering. He's saying this is what it's going to be. But he knows as well as we know. Just because you forgive somebody a sin isn't going to necessarily get them back to synagogue, studying Torah day and night, and becoming one who doesn't have to ask other people's questions. But it will for a great majority of people. And he knew that. And he makes it clear in Malachi 3, which is the last page of the last of the prophets. He stopped talking to his prophets. The Hebrew Bible closes up. So that's what that all means. As far as everybody has to, it becomes, be mindful. Now each sect, I guess it is, of Judaism, Orthodox, conservative, Reform or Reconstructionist, they're all going to have to decide what that means for them. As you can imagine, everybody's going to come up with something different. What being mindful is, but as Elijah, and I am the righteous servant, and I'll get to this, I actually handled the task of Elijah, David, and the prophet like Moses. I've already pretty much handled the prophet like Moses. I've written 2 books. As Moses wrote the Torah, God told me what to write down, commanded and directed. It's not straight dictation. I get real involved in it. He makes me feel like a writer. But every word is his. It's divinely received. So it's scripture. It's not canonized, but it is new, and it straightens out a lot of things that Judaism has done wrong. They just flat got it wrong, and he knew they would. There's a lot of cranky writing in there. 53 is a great example. The reason I'm cursed with disease, that I'll offer myself for guilt and receive long life. The person with disease has got one purpose. He knew the Gentiles were going to come up with an unblemished Lamb of God under Leviticus for sin forgiveness. It's a story, but he knew they'd turn to it and they would ignore those words. They would ignore it. They interpreted it to be he was brought to sickness, was brought into grief. But the problem with that is, in verse 12, he's exposed to death. So whatever the sickness is, it exposes him to death and takes him to grief. In my case, that was cancer. So they can tiptoe around it all they want. But I had to go through the cancer just because of that, because Ezekiel is your go-by for 53. A spirit seized me, and I went into bitterness and fury in my spirit, he says, in the hand of God. Now, I'm going to get to that. That's not getting you that's going to God's boot camp. And he doesn't have it doesn't bother him one back to wound you, to hurt you mightily, to basically maltreat you. I call it torment. Sometimes it can be so bad, but it has changed me. Now, it took 13 years, but I'm not the same person he started with by any stretch of the imagination. It takes the fury from you. You know, Moses was like that. He got so furious he killed a man. Ezekiel was like that. I was like that. And we call it his fire refinement. And I'll have a lot more on that as I go. Okay, the description of the righteous servant begins in 3 verses combined by quotes, which I don't see that anybody else has in the renditions of their translation from Hebrew to English. Shabbat, Soviet Singer, Jews for Judaism. I don't see it. And it makes a difference. 3 verses combined by quotes at the end of chapter 52, which of course leads into 53, where God is the speaker. And then it becomes the witnesses in verse 1 of chapter 53, speaking in the first 6 verses, also combined in quotes. Okay, that's important because Isaiah 53 is a story. The righteous servant is as lowly as these people are. For the most part, that's what you gather. He was born from arid land, this and that, but rises to a great tree crown. Okay, he starts lowly. Okay, then he goes back and helps them because they're in the same place. What is it? They're unrighteous. They're sick. They're not observant Jews. They feel badly before God. They don't live their lives correctly. They've got all kinds of problems in the family. They've got problems at work. All kinds of things simply because they don't obey God's laws that he says you really need to get through this harsh world. You know, he says it's nothing to me whether you abide by them or not. It's for you. You know, if you don't want to be observant, I'm not going to pay any attention to you. That's just the way he is. Okay, here's the witnesses. This is the witness is, and they are the many made righteous. Remember, this man, he goes through all these things. He is, they're going to tell you, he was wounded. He was, well, let me read it. Let me read what they have. But he ends up making the many righteous, and that would include all these people who are sick from unrighteousness. And then a multitude of people. It starts out slow. Which I can attest to. Okay, the witnesses who are Jews identify themselves as ones of the many made righteous by God's righteous servant, saying, it was our sickness that he was bearing, our suffering he endured. That's verse 4. He was wounded because of our sins, crushed because of our iniquities. Verse 5. He bore the chastisement that made us whole, and by his bruises we were healed. Verse 5. And the Lord visited upon him the guilt of us all. Verse 6. And see, offering for guilt. Verse 10. That's what the offering for guilt's all about. Basically, that's where you tell God, I'll go remove their guilt by being the teacher of righteousness that makes many righteous. I'll make them righteous, their guilt is gone. And then what about all these words? Wounded, chastised, sickness he took, this and that. That's God's boot camp. That's where he sleep deprivation, maltreatment. I mean, the stories are endless over 13 years because he's relentless. And he does not sleep, which means I don't sleep much. And, most of the time I can't understand why he's still doing it. I feel like I'm prepared and I'm ready. The last 2 years have been the most terrible, brutal of the 13. Every year it just escalated more and more. And his response to that is, it takes more to get out of you what I want. These emotions, all these different emotions. He says, the more I draw them out, the more I maltreat you, the more I make you angry, the more you change, whether you can see it or not. In the short term, I couldn't see anything changing in the first 3 or 4 years. But it started to. And today, I can look back, and he can take me back, so he can put pictures in my mind and make me feel as I felt in the beginning. And I see a great difference, Okay, now, what I'm reading from here on my phone is from the books. So, I'm kind of giving you just the vernacular on it from my standpoint, but I make sure I read what he wrote because it's a lot clearer, it makes more sense. But this is what I'm getting all this. Is that God gave it to me. He taught me the Bible. He had me read it. We would go out on long walks. I had visions. And then we finally, after about 5 years, got to writing a blog. And all the blogs became the chapters. The book of Ezekiel is the key to understanding Isaiah 53. In the book of Ezekiel, God seized him and made him suitable for the purpose of being a prophet to the Assyria, Babylon exiles in God's final refinement. This is from Ezekiel chapter 3, verses 7 through 9. But the house of Israel will refuse to listen to you, for they refuse to listen to me. For the whole house of Israel are brazen of forehead and stubborn of heart, that I will make your face as hard as theirs, and your forehead as brazen as theirs. I will make your forehead like adamant, harder than flint. Do not fear them, and do not be dismayed by them, though they are a rebellious breed. How's he going to do that? How's he going to make his forehead like adamant? So he's got to calm his emotions, but make him tough as a boot at the same time. Ezekiel says, a spirit seized me and carried me away. I went in bitterness in the fury of my spirit, while the hand of the Lord was strong upon me. That's the fire of refinement. He's bitter and furious at God because he's hurting him. He's hurting his feelings, he's hurting his emotions, he's hurting him physically. He pinned him to the ground with his hands bound behind his back like he had handcuffs on. He has to lay on one side all day long and all night long for 390 days. If you think it didn't happen, I beg to differ. I tell God that's it. And he had 40 more days for the sins and the punishment of the house of Judah, it is said. And that wasn't vicarious suffering either. It just corresponded to it. Basically, he was a preaching man. It would have infuriated him that he was taking the punishment for the house of Israel and Judah. He didn't go like, wait a minute. I've been trying to get them to stop sinning my whole life. Just infuriates you, okay? Little bitty things, chastisement. Ezekiel says, Lord, he says, oh, Lord, I have not eaten the flesh of a dead animal since my youth. And God's response to him is, what? I give you cow dung instead of human treatment, maltreatment, and chastisement. That took like 1 minute of a day. I mean, he can keep it going for weeks, days, weeks, and months. But that's what that is with Ezekiel. It's 53. Ezekiel showed he will bear the punishment for sin of the houses of Israel and Judah, and he is punished, chastised, maltreated, bruised, and crushed, to make him suitable to be a prophet to the exiles and speak the words of God he is given during the ordeal and the anguish of it. Out of his anguish, that's part of Isaiah 53 too. You know, Jesus didn't come out of any anguish, he died. But that's in him. Out of his anguish, he will have devotion. I can't remember exactly, but anyway, I think it's verse 11. Out of his anguish. And that's what it's all about. And why did God write it like that? The same reason Jews and preachers the Messianic era. He just knew they would today, in the day of the Lord. Because he knew the people of antiquity would. And that, which is understandable. They didn't go through an age of science, an age of medicine, an age of reason. They didn't go to school. They couldn't read. The masses, the great majority of all people. You know, they were like children who lived on emotion, who weren't very bright. They might have been brighter than the Arabs, but yeah. And it was a tough time to live. So there's a lot of story in God's book because that's all antiquity knew. Tell me a story. Tell me I can't read. Tell me a story. That's where all that stuff comes from. But you know, once you become enlightened and you have reason and you're an intelligent man, you're a skilled man, you got to start asking yourself, well, wait a minute, how is nation going to love nation? How are you going to get this world to suddenly, out of nowhere, 2 billion Christians, 2 billion Muslims say the Jews been right about God all along, how stupid we're weak. It can't happen. You can't happen. You can say that stuff in antiquity, and it's like, that's great stuff. I hope that happens. It can't. It's not possible. You have too much history, Jews, to think it's going to happen. And thinking that did what? It left out utter destruction to the land. And Judaism's teaching of the arrival of Moshiach, which of course is when the day of the Lord is. Because the Lord appoints him to be the shepherd amongst the flock and dismisses the rest of the shepherds. That's all the rabbis of the world. They've all been dismissed because I am faithful. I have been appointed. But my appointment is not, there's no Davidic dynasty of kinship and kingdoms. No. I'm a shepherd. I'm a teacher. I'm not a rabbi. I'm not ordained or anything like that. But I am a teacher, and I think that word means teacher. But, no, it's this. It's what I'm doing. They're all dismissed. Of course, you'll still be going to synagogue and this and that. See, that phrase, they should no longer tend the flock. After God has his reckoning and dismisses them from tending the flock, that works in antiquity. Again, you got to know how to read this thing. It's a two-part. There's antiquity, Middle Ages. There's the age of the common era, age of enlightenment, science, medicine. We know you can't resurrect a body from the dust of bones. These religious people in Judaism want, I know what they do. They do what the Christians do. It's not faith, I believe. In other words, if you say different, you're showing a lack of faith. No, you're not. You're showing intelligence. You say, that's just not going to happen, because look what God does do. You have to look at the covenant of friendship. And human beings aren't created for utopia. We're not created to live like that. Rambam says all of the world will be for nothing but to know God. God wouldn't even like that. I certainly wouldn't like it. That's a whole nother story, Ram. I got other videos of him. He made all this stuff that would be his perfect world. There's none of it's in the Bible. None of it's supported by God's covenant of friendship. He tells you, concrete, this is what's going to happen when I come. I'm going to grant this covenant of friendship and appoint David the shepherd. When David's there. So when Moshiach comes, the covenant of friendship comes, and it's got all you could possibly want, Jesus. Bottom line, you're never defeated, dispersed again. And what he's saying is, if you don't listen to my prophet, if he doesn't clear the way for me to return to my temple, which means get it built, and of course I can't do that on my own. I gotta have followers, which presumably is the many righteous people who believe. I don't expect it to be a lot of people. I don't know what many in a multitude is. God won't tell them. We'll see. But just having a man in divine being, see, he doesn't understand that, because they don't understand the Holy Spirit's the person, which is absolutely absurd too. Because he gets grieved. You can't grieve in an inanimate object or element. He goes to Ezekiel. He says, Ezekiel, speak. So he can talk. And then to make a show of it, God, Ezekiel's in Jerusalem, God leaves, ascends, and then descends on a hill east of Jerusalem, which means the Holy Spirit, and then it says the Spirit of God, who would have been left there, took Ezekiel on a vision. He's got to be a person, and he is. Those are the divine beings. Those two are always together. The Holy Spirit is the angel of God's presence. And of course, what God's Spirit is, God is, just like where I am, my Spirit is. He's an angel, and his body is not human form with wings. His body is the Spirit of God. So he's the Holy Spirit and an angel. But that's the man of the divine being. So when you read Isaiah 11, the Spirit of God alights upon him, you don't know that includes God. Because he doesn't say it. But God is in his Spirit. Now, this scripture on that, I'll leave that to some other videos that make it clear God is in his Spirit. And he doesn't tell you why. This is why proofs. This is how you say, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe we had so many things wrong. But all of this makes perfect sense. And how does this man, who's an atheist for 50 years, a Gentile, from Texas of all places, know all these things and see all this that no Jew has ever seen before? Did I just suddenly become the greatest sage and rabbi in the history of Judaism? For the Jewish people? No, people. I didn't. It's because God taught me. And I wrote these books. And, we're still fine-tuning them. I have to have the human experience. There's not a lot of perks in my job, believe it or not. I had to, I still forget things. They'll have me forget things. But they have total control of my mind. They know when I have forgotten something. They could tell me. Every so often I'll make some mistakes in my typing. And he'll leave it in there because it embarrasses me. Continuing to change me. Draw some emotion from it. But it won't ever be anything that hurts his cause. I can promise you that. Okay, so back to Ezekiel. Just like the righteous servant, except he's not crushed with disease and does not make himself an offering for guilt. And I told you what that was for. That was kind of aimed at the Gentiles and Christianity. The description of the righteous servant starts in 52. At the end of it, 51, God passes his wrath from the Jewish people to those who told them to get down on the ground and walked all over them. That would be that group of Gentiles specifically that took your book and said you don't know how to read it. It's prophetic of Jesus. But Gentiles in general, because the world has done that one way or another, but I think it's specific. So his wrath is on Christianity right now, and I am the biggest arrow in the quiver. Because Isaiah 53 is a Gentile. God comes from Adam, and of the peoples, of the Jews, none are with him. And Adam is associated with Esau, and all his descendants were Gentiles. He married nothing but Gentile women, the Edomites. And Adam was in Jordan, and that's Gentile lands too. So basically, I'm coming from a Gentile country, a Christian country, and I'm coming with a Gentile. There's no Jews with me. And nobody's known that. And, you know, how could a man totally fit the description of the Lord's righteous servant in Isaiah 52, 14, 13, I'm just looking for the descriptive parts. This is where it all starts with 53. With his appearance marred, unlike that of man. That would be normal men. And just so marred, he shall startle many nations. In verse 52-15. There is a word. First of all, marred means to disfigure, or disfigured. That's what marred means. Unlike that of other men. God says, I touched you in the womb, and took my right breast from me, and withered my right arm. And I had to have some surgery up here so I could move it correctly. But it works good. It works just as good as a left. It just doesn't have any strength. But it's fast. I mean, I throw a baseball with it. But he did. He disfigured me at birth. So it started, but he never spoke to me. They came to me just like Jeremiah. They came to me at birth. And I think Jeremiah says in the womb. But anyway, because they have my whole life. They sent it to me in vision. They don't have all of your life. They know who you are just like looking at you. And they have a knowledge, an absolute knowledge that's beyond anything we can comprehend. But I mean, they literally can send back the ambience of any event in my life. My first kiss, driving my first car. It's just the different places I've lived. You know, it always feels kind of different when you live in other places. It's truly amazing, but they had to show me that we did these things. We orchestrated these things. And, but he didn't speak to me until I was 50 years old. But he disfigured me in the womb for that verse, right there. Just for that. I've never let it bother me personally. Oh, he said one of the reasons was I wanted people to pick on you as they pick on young Jewish boys just for being Jewish. You get picked on just for being disfigured. Just because bullies think they can whoop you because you got a bad arm. Well, I told him, I said, well, what it really did is it made me one hell of a fighter. It just made me mad. You know, yeah, like I said, it's fast. I can still hit you with it. But, you know, I haven't been in the fight since I got out of the hospital. And never could now. Of course, I never would want to. I live with God. And he lives within me and without me. And I've gone through all that. They're like two clouds that have come together. That's how God is in his spirit. Well, his spirit is in God too. The elements of God's mind, that's his presence. You know, my presence is where I'm at with my mind. And then the elements of spirit. Okay? They're like, it's hard, they fill any room I'm in. But they flow through me. That's the difference. I'm mixed in there with him. Whereas if you're in the room with me, they would just surround you. They flow through me. And so there's his power. And there's a heaviness to him. I always feel it. It's not just... I'm going to talk about that now. I'm going to try to stop talking so much. Ad libbing. I could just be reading this straight. Picking back up, if I were to be seen with all of my injuries from accidents and surgical operations at one time, before healing, together with my congenital disfigurement, my appearance and features would be marred from that of a man and people. There's a long history in the book on my life, beginning with my first surgery to impaling my right knee on a Coke bottle, almost losing my leg. There's a lot of story on that, being shot through the abdomen when I was about 18, I think it was, and almost dying from that. So got a lot of scars. In total, I've counted up about 15 surgical scars. And about 5 of those come from the gunshot wound. These accidents, it seemed like I was in the hospital every 2 years, getting stitched up somewhere. But get my teeth knocked out by a telephone receiver. And so here's what so that is how, everything I just said, is how a man could fit the description of the Lord's righteous servant in Isaiah 52:14, and just so he shall startle many nations, kings shall be silenced because of him. Okay, I went through all that. I'm marked, I'm disfigured, but I'm still alive. Now, you take care of your sin of putting the people of Israel as the righteous servant of God in Isaiah 53. Everybody in his story dies. I don't know how they startle anybody, much less make the many righteous and a multitude. I don't know, and I get on these two, and Jews to Judaism worse. The whole thing is based on something that's never going to happen. The Messianic era, it's a farce. I really sometimes wonder if they don't really know that. Especially Toby is saying he's very intelligent. He's got information from here to there. But his reasoning capabilities on Isaiah 53:10, because that's all I've really got, is scary. It's so bad. It's scary bad. He went to Leviticus like the Christians did with Jesus and started applying human beings to an animal worship and atonement system that God did away with in the times of the Bible. Nobody gets on life. Nobody makes anybody righteous. To think he doesn't really know, but then that would say he's a liar. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying that's the worst case of reasoning capabilities I've ever seen by an intelligent, capable man. That's what I'm saying. But he needs... This is the day of the Lord. There's a new teaching here. He wasn't supposed to know everything I know. He was intentionally hidden from him in many ways. For instance, the Holy Spirit and the angel of his presence appears one time. And it's in the book of Ezekiel. God couldn't put that in the Torah. He couldn't have made it clear. He was clearer. Now in the Torah he says, I send my angel before you. Do not disobey him. He will not forgive you. For I